Hey, beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. I guess you can call it a podcast. And I am here to do Vlogmas Day 5. Yes, I'm still at it. And I'm going to review Love and Marriage Huntsville Reunion Part 1. Again, it was a little lackluster, but we can still talk about it. Not a big deal. I do believe that at some point they're going to bring it. Like, looking at the previews, I think they're going to bring us a little bit of heat. All right, so the episode starts off, well, the reunion starts off with Carlos running around telling everybody that he's the one that's going to be hosting. You guys, I can't remember who hosted before. Who hosted before? But everybody was fine with that except Martell and Marceau. They were both like, well, yeah, and Tisha. They were all like, you know where the bodies are buried. Like, you know the answers to everything that people want to know. So basically, he's going to ask the right questions, and I can appreciate that. And when I tell y'all, Carlos King was bringing it. I have to give him props on the questions and the fact that he knows what he's talking about. So yeah, he really did answer the right questions. Ask the right questions. First one's out. He calls America's favorite couple. I'm like, okay. And that would be Kimmy and Maurice. And Kimmy looks cute. He calls her Roger Rabbit. No, not Roger Rabbit. Jessica Rabbit, because she has on this tight red dress. She does look cute. And he asks Maurice if he's ready to handle that. He's like, oh, I've been handling all of that. And I'm like, ew. He even starts off super shady. He's like, well, you can handle 6 women in one night. So, and Maurice's face looked like, oh, hell. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what you have to look forward to. And he just gives this little laugh. It's so funny. I never realized how much he reminds me of my cousin Kirk. He actually looks a lot like him. So Letitia and Marceau comes out, and her look is a miss for me, you guys. Tisha does not need to do a whole lot when she is like, she can be fresh faced, she can have on very minimal makeup. I didn't like her hair. I didn't like the dress. She looked very uncomfortable in this. I thought it was red, but Carlos King kept calling it orange, so I guess it was orange, which is even worse. But it just wasn't a good look. I mean, she didn't look bad, but she didn't look how she could look. Tisha can look very pretty. So he introduced Martell. He comes out in his like royal blue type of suit, and it does look nice. It's always tight. All his shit is tight all the time. However, it looks nice on him. Like, you can tell Martell can dress. He can dress. He just maybe needs to go up a size, but then it won't show his rippling muscles. So he's not going to do that. So when he sat down, Carlos King is like, don't rip your pants. And I'm like, pot, calling the kettle black because his pants were just as tight. So then he introduced the Queen Bee, the 29 Grammy Award winning. I'm like, He's like, Queen herself, Beyonce. And then he says, Melody Holt. And I'm like, that was too shady. Listen, we can shade all day, but don't shade me on my intro. Don't do that. But she wasn't offended at all. And Melody's look, she could do better. So the first question he asked Tisha and Marceau is how they feel in terms of progress and, the evolution of the show. Tisha says it looks good, or it feels good to be able to look back and see the goals that she set and that she accomplished them. And Marceau pretty much said the same thing. He's like, even with COVID and everything, it's good to see that we're still on track and we're still doing things. And I agree. So we find out that Tisha is off Twitter for good. So she says, we don't know if it's totally for good, but he says for good. She said for good. She says the one bit of advice that he told her when they first started was don't read the comments. And she says now she understands why. So she is totally off Twitter, and that's true. Listen, they get picked apart, and Tisha has not been the fan favorite this season, especially. I think I wasn't feeling Tisha from day one, because it seemed like she was just kind of picking at Mel the whole time. I was just like, what is her problem? But it seemed like this season, people really started to be like, okay, Tisha's on that bull. So he turns to Melody and Martell, and he's like, you guys pitched the show to me as, a show for powerful couples in Huntsville, and now you guys are no longer married. Do you regret doing the show? She says no, because there's more positive than negative. And I'm like, dang, your whole family is like ruined and you feel like there's more positive. But she said it opened doors, which it has. Like Melody has lots of opportunities now. Unfortunately, Martell didn't. And again, I think it's because Martell talked himself out of some things by just being a jerk, just an all around jerk, and doing interviews and showing that he's a jerk. But Martell says he sacrificed for Melody because she wanted to be on TV. Then, of course, Melody jumps in, and she does that a lot. I have to admit that Melody does not let him freaking talk, and I wish he would just shut up sometimes, even though what's coming out of his mouth? Bull. We all know that. But he does say that he sacrificed for her, and ultimately he did it for her, and he wish he wouldn't have. So Martell says, of course, he regrets doing it. Anything that contributed to the demise of his family, and anything that had something to do with that, he regrets. And I'm like, do you regret the fact that you cheated for 5 years? Like, you had a whole nother situation going on for 5 years. So what are you talking about? And he says that he feel like a situation that could have been private and maybe worked through, and he would still have his family, was brought to the public. So Carlos King asked, well, do you feel like if you guys were not on the show that you would still be married? So after the commercial break, Martell answers the question, and he says, yeah, he feel like they would still be married. And Carlos asks Melody, would you still be married? She says no. I happen to believe they probably would still be married. I think they would, because she knew already that he was cheating. Like, she's been knowing. So I don't feel like, and again, I'm going to have to agree with everybody who said that they feel like these two could possibly get back together at some point. Like, they don't get along, but I feel like Melody just has this love for this goof troop. And I mean, I guess you have all these kids with him, you were married to him, you know a different side than what we get to see, because what we get to see is not flattering. It is not. Martell's a good looking guy, but he takes it all away with his actions. And like, as soon as he opens his mouth, the misogyny and the narcissism just engulfs, and you just can't see anything else other than that. So yeah, I kind of happen to agree with Martell that he probably would still be married. Sorry, Mel. Martell said he told her not to read the comments and everything, and he says that he don't stress about it, and to this day he's the most hated one on the cast. And Marceau said second most. I disagree. I don't think everybody hates Marceau as much. I mean, God, this whole cast be getting the business. I ain't even gonna. I'm not even gonna lie, but I think Martell is the most hated. I do. Oh, I spoke out of turn. Actually, they weren't talking about Marceau being the second most hated. It would be Tisha. And Carlos King is like, yeah, Tisha trends every week. And she says thanks to the host. And they kind of let that go. I would love to know what she thinks Carlos King has done to attribute to her being the second or first most hated. Because no, ma'am, you did that all yourself. So we then find out that Marceau did not like the title, Love and Marriage Huntsville, because he thought it was going to be about construction. And I'm guessing he just means the comeback group, and they were going to talk about, construction and selling homes and building homes and all that. And Kimmy says, yeah, we knew once the name changed that we were in for something a little bit different. And she said it was a little disheartening. Marceau said, yeah, I had a problem with it because I know about construction. I don't know nothing about love and marriage. And I'm like, how long were y'all married at the time? And you don't know anything about love and marriage? Oh, my God. He then asked Maurice's opinion about the show and how it started off being, a good show and then end up being a show with arguments and everything. And he says that it's not fair because that's not all they show. He says they show the fact that they start something and they finish it. I agree. I do. Love and Marriage Huntsville definitely shows where they are doing things other than just arguing. Yeah, they have lots of petty fights and everything, but in the meantime, they're doing things, and we're seeing brands being built. We're seeing podcasts. We're seeing Mel do her thing. Like, we're really seeing things get done. So it's not all bad. So he asked Maurice about Kimmy and the side chick thing and the fact that he heard everyone saying that Maurice does not chime in and say anything in her defense. And Maurice comes up with this crazy analogy about, oh, that would be like me defending myself about being an alien. And he says it's impossible for her to have been a side chick, and he has the U-Haul receipts to prove it. Don't know what that means, but apparently he met her after he was already gone and gone through all these different women and so on and so forth. Carlos King asked Martel, so Marceau told you that she was a side chick, and he says, yeah, in a laughing moment, he said that. Marceau sits up and says, well, you know how you know it wasn't true is because Martel said it. And Martel said, it was true. And I happen to believe Martel. I didn't know that I could ever trust anything that came out of his mouth. However, I do think he's sincere in this. Now, whether Marceau was just playing or whatever, I think he didn't just pull it out of thin air. So yeah. So he asked Tisha if she ever heard that Kimmy was a side chick, and she says, well, when Kaiwa came, she said that Kimmy was the side chick, and Martel says, yeah, it came from y'all, damn. And she says when Kaiwa said that, she told her, well, that doesn't sound like my friend. And did we see that part? I think we saw the part where Kaiwa said she was a side chick, but we did not see Tisha defending her, did we? But regardless, Tisha said, she doesn't believe it, so it is what it is. Okay, so I feel like we get a little clarity. Kimmy says she came like after they signed this document, and apparently after you sign this document, you have to wait 6 months before anything happens because they want to see if you could get together or, reconcile. She's saying that Kaiwa never said to her that she felt like she was a side chick. She felt like she interfered with the marriage because in that waiting period, that 6-month waiting period, Kimmy came along and kind of messed up his focus basically. So there was no chance to reconcile. Maurice then says that no, there was not going to be any sort of reconciliation. He says she did what she did, and apparently she did something unforgivable, and he said there was no turning back. She did what she did. I've never slept with her again. I've never been intimate with her again. I never looked back. So she could just cut it with all that because they weren't going to get back together. So Carlos King asks how the relationship is now with Kaiwa. Kimmy says that they are moving forward. They're trying. They're doing better. And she actually did have a grown woman conversation with her about the show and the fact that the conversation is coming up again, which I felt like very grown woman of you. Kudos to Kimmy, because the entire time that they were talking about it again, I was like, Lord, y'all finna take 2 steps backwards. But she said she didn't want that to happen, and that's why she forewarned her. So then we have this montage of Melody and Martel, and hilarious that they're sitting in the confessional, I guess season 1, and he's saying that he's not a cheater, and the way she looked was hilarious. And then we have him back at the reunion saying, oh, y'all wrong for that, because yeah, we know that you're a cheater, so you're also a liar. So when we're done with the montage, Carlos King asked Melody, so what do you think about what you just watched? And she said, it's fine. It was a bunch of bull besides the fact that my daughter was born. That was the best thing that came out of it. He's like, what was bull? She's like, the fact that all Martel did was contradict himself. And he still does that. Girl. Martel asked her, well, what part exactly did I contradict myself on? She said, oh, the fact that you said you're not a cheater? And he starts laughing. And he said, oh, okay. What a jerk. Then he says, well, here's the thing. I'm not a cheater at heart. The next woman that I get with, I'm not going to cheat on her. And my thing is, isn't he with the side chick? Like, aren't they still together? So Carlos asked Melody and Martel, last time we had the reunion, you guys were united front. And then we see where Melody is like, listen, it's Team Hope forever, this and that. He's like, everybody wanted you to leave him, and you were like, nah, I'm here. And then the pandemic happened. And she says, yeah, I had Melania in December. The pandemic happens, and we're all in the house playing games, making milkshakes. But then I start realizing that he's leaving for hours. And Carlos King is like, wait, hold up. So we're all quarantined, and we're supposed to just stay in place so that we don't, for the protection of our homes or whatever. And he's leaving out. Yeah, Carlos King was irritated by that. So he says all that, and then he turns to Martell and says, and you were leaving out at this time when you're supposed to be at home protecting your family. And he says, yeah. Where were you going? To the gym. But the gym was closed. And Martell says, not my gym. And Carlos King says, so is there other things that were open that you were leaving out for? And he laughs and says, apparently so. And everybody else is just like, oh my God, Carlos. But, yeah, kudos to Melody to be able to sit there with the stuff that comes out of Martell's mouth. Ooh, y'all, Carlos King gave him the business. He said, so while we're in the middle of a pandemic that is killing over 600,000 people in the United States alone, you decide that it's important for you to leave out to do your own fulfillment and pretty much put your kids and your brand new baby in harm's way. And he has zero oh my God. I can't believe that he was leaving out during the pandemic. Like, really? So Carlos King says, you were leaving the house to go to sleep with the other woman. And he says, no, I wasn't. No, I wasn't at that time. And Carlos King says, so how did she get pregnant? And he says, let's do the math. Martell, let's do the math. And Carlos says, let's do the math. When is your son's birthday? And Martell smiles and says, nah, he don't want to talk about it. He's trash. So then basically we find out that Melody left, not because he had somebody pregnant, but because he was coming and going and saying things to her like, you're going to learn to accept it. You need to talk to some of the older ladies. And she's like, you need to talk to some of the older men. And he's like, I did. And they said, just don't mess with anyone that has nothing to lose. Make them sign a contract, etc. And she said with all of that, she could tell that he hadn't changed at all. And that is when she made the decision to leave. It had nothing to do with a baby. So Melody says she found out in 2017 because she had no idea that there was any infidelity going on. And she's in the kitchen. They're doing family stuff. And Martell's phone keeps ringing. Block call. He's not answering. So she just picks up the phone. She's like, hello. They hang up. She said, then they call back. She's like, hello. And she called her Martell's kid's mom, which I thought was very nice, instead of being like this broad or whatever, which is probably what I would have said, or something worse. But she said that she's like, I didn't call your phone, I called him, put Martell on the phone. Girl, she better than me. Y'all seen the memes where they like, when black people calling you dumb, when they say, you better than me, or you a good one, or something like that. Yeah, she better than me, because she said she's like, who you talking to? And she ended up calling Martell to the phone. She said Martell would not come to the phone for anything. So for some reason, we just bypass all that. And Carlos turns to Martell and says, yeah, at some point you accused Marceau of trying to talk to Melody. And he says, no, I didn't. And he's like, yeah, you did. And he says, no, I'll tell you exactly what happened, and he apologized for it. Marceau said, he apologized for nothing. And Martell is like, yeah, you did. So basically, let's break it down. Marceau said that the night of the phone call, when Melody was super upset, Melody's mom was working with Marceau at the time, so they were close and everything. She called Marceau and said, listen, they just got into this big fight, and, I need you to try to calm it down or whatever. He said he attempted to call Martell first. Martell didn't answer. He was trying to get him out of the situation to kind of, cool things down. Martell didn't answer, so he called Melody. Melody answered. She was super upset, said she's somewhere by a Chick-fil-A. They met at Chick-fil-A. They talked in the driveway. Apparently, I don't know if Martell called while they were together in the car or whatever. Then we get this whole thing with drinks. Oh, you said let's go have drinks. Marceau is like, that means nothing. But because you don't drink, you think that it really means something. So half the time when people say, oh, we need to get together or just talk about some things or whatever, you say, let's go for a drink. Martell was trying to make it seem like he was thinking drinks in terms of like a date or whatever, but that's not what he was saying. So Marceau said he doesn't apologize for anything. He didn't do anything wrong. Carlos King asked if he had a crush on her or if Martell thinks he had a crush on her. Martell says no. Melody says Marceau has never been out of line. He has never said anything, done anything out of line, and it's just unbelievable that Martell is doing all this. And I have to say, I know that I heard a lot from Funky Dineva, etc., that Marceau gets this look on his face when Melody comes in the room and he has a crush on her. I haven't seen it, but then again, I don't look for it. I just feel like Marceau is one of those guys who just say inappropriate things to people. Like, think about the fact that what he said to Tisha's mom that one time about her leather pants and stuff. You know, he don't even really like this lady, this lady. But what he said to her, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was inappropriate. I just think he says some things that are inappropriate. His sense of humor is a little different, and he means no harm, but he's inappropriate at times. So maybe he's, giving off an inappropriate vibe with Melody. Not saying that's cool or whatever, but I just think that's more so. All right, so Martell said basically his point is that she was in a vulnerable place, and he felt like Marceau should not have been calling her at that time. Whatever. Then we get to, he's like, yeah, and then you moved out, you got the apartment, and you cheated on me. And she's like, what do you mean cheated? So basically she's saying she didn't cheat. She didn't feel like she was going back. She moved out. She was done. Carlos King says, well, did you cheat on him while you guys were married? She's like, they were separated or whatever. So he says, well, did you sleep with someone before Melania was born? And she says, no. And he says, well, but you gave the guy fellatio, and you left me because of that. She's like, I didn't leave you because of that. No, you left me. So basically, Melody has said that he said he cheated on her because she doesn't really like giving fellatio. She doesn't like giving head or whatever. And he's like, you gave this guy head. She's like, nah, I didn't do that. But he did give it to me. And we get this big old boom, boom. And y'all, I fell into it. When she said that, I was like, oh! And then we got a commercial break. So Melody says she moved out in December of 2017. And apparently she met someone in January. They talked for 4 weeks. And I'm like, that was pretty quick. She at first said that he gave her, head or whatever. She didn't do anything. And Martell said, but you're lying because you told me that you gave him head as well. And I have it on, I recorded it. And she's like, well, I don't care. Go get your recorder. But then she turns to, if I did, I don't remember. And I'm like, girl, you did or you didn't. And why would you tell him that in the first place? Like, why are y'all having that conversation? Why? And I guess it's because when they get back together, then the guys want to be like, oh, what did you do while you were alone, this and that or whatever. But Martell can suck it, okay? Because you had full-fledged relationships for years, and now you want to grill her on what she did for the couple months or weeks that she was out of the house. Beat it. So, yeah, Melody was lying. She gave this guy head, or she didn't, and lied to him and said she did just to make him jealous. I mean, that happens too. But yeah, she was out of gas. Melody, you're out of gas, ma'am. But we don't care. We don't care what you did because Martell has done it all, including having a whole kid with this girl. So, Mel, if you got yours, I don't care. So Carlos King says, everybody was hoping and thinking that you guys would work it out, but then you got a woman pregnant. Did you think Melody would leave you? And Martell was very honest and said, no, he didn't think she would ever leave him. And I'm like, yeah, that's because she's been knowing for years that you've been cheating and, she's been letting that shit go. Then once you guys got on TV, you told her, don't read the comments. Don't read the comments. She read the comments and saw how crazy she was looking, and that's why she's gone. But he says that he doesn't want to be a cheater. He had the pastor pray for him and everything. What's his name? Carlos is like, so is it just this person or what? And apparently it's just her. He said if it was anybody else, it would have just been sex. You guys, in this last couple minutes, I felt so bad for Melody having to sit there and listen to him say that it was this girl that he just could not stay away from because of their connection. And Carlos King asking, was it sexual? And he's like, nah, like there's a connection. And oh my God. And Carlos King is like, listen, so basically, let's stop pussyfooting around. You love her. And he's like, I see people online calling her the side dish or whatever, but no, she's absolutely the entree, the dessert, everything, because you couldn't leave her alone. Something kept drawing you back to her. You love her. And oh my God, all of that for Mel to be sitting there listening to just broke my heart as a woman. I don't care how over it you were or whatever, but just to sit there and listen to him say that he has this connection. So the last cliffhanger question was, if you had not met Mel and married Mel, do you think you would be married to this woman? That's the cliffhanger question. Even if he says, yeah, I'm going to say no. No, sir. I think y'all formed this bond. And it was even more exciting because it was something you were not supposed to be doing. So she was not the wife. She was not the one that was cooking for you, cleaning for you, fussing at you about doing this and that. She had absolutely pretty much minimal expectations of you. So what is there to argue about? It's just different. When you have another woman, she doesn't have the same thing that the woman that you're with. The dynamics are different. So yeah, of course there could just be this connection because that's all you do is connect and whatever. That was the end of that, you guys. I will be doing part 2. I cannot wait until we get Tiffany and her terrible looking, that's not nice, her husband on there, and we rip them apart, and he tells them, listen, people want you fired, because yes, we do. We want both of them out of there, and I hope they give them the business. But I'll be back for reunion part 2. Thank you guys so much. If you are still here, you are the real MVP, and I appreciate you. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Smooches.